Hi, Marley. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Like I said, I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was, so heartwarming and friendly, and I think something a lot of people could relate to. And I wanted to know why you decided to take the role.
I decided to take the role because this was something that I've always wanted to do, and for on so many levels. One being that we had three authentically deaf actors playing deaf characters and leading the film, telling our story. It wasn't like actors who were deaf in the background. Okay, fine, we checked that box. We were really carrying the film. And I've always wanted to work with Sian Heder, who I was a fan of ever since I saw her work in Tallulah. And I think also this is the type of story that I think one of millions of stories that should be told. They're universal.
You mentioned working with Sean, um, and I was reading how you guys had a really collaborative process on the film. Can you speak a bit about that?
Well, when I saw the script, I said to my team, first of all, I want to meet her immediately. So we set up a meeting and we had a conversation on various parts of the script, her vision, my vision. We talked about deaf culture, and I was taken with her because I'd never seen a director so invested in a film that had to do with deaf characters. She learned our language, she learned the culture, she learned deaf history, she made deaf friends. She really, really rolled up her sleeves and did her homework. And she was very open to discussing how the script could work for us, how we could work together. So we built a sense of mutual trust. It worked both ways. And she made this movie, as you see, as great as it was.
And did you have a lot of hand in shaping your character? Like, how much do you relate to Jackie?
Well, Jackie and I both are obviously mothers. I'm a mother of four, though, and my kids are all CODAs. However, I think one of the differences between myself and Jackie is that I don't have a codependent relationship to my children like Jackie does. I don't rely on them as interpreters. They're fairly independent. I mean, it may so happen that we're at the grocery or a restaurant, and I might look to them for them to sign what's being said. And of course, sometimes it's just natural. You just want to interpret. But they're their own people. They have their own independent lives, and I'm very supportive of them as a parent. Whereas Jackie approaches it a little bit differently. She's somewhat focused on her work and her family, and she's a very private person. And she doesn't necessarily think about what her daughter has in her mind for her future, that she wants to be a singer, because music is obviously not in Jackie's interest or life. But that's a movie where we get to see the journey of Jackie, how she learns and grows and transforms her attitude throughout the film. That's what's nice to see.
And what was your experience like working with Amelia, who plays your daughter in the film?
Amelia is a godsend. She really is. What other 17-year-old could play and manage to do and wear so many hats? She acted. She had to learn American Sign Language. She had to sing at the same time. She had to interpret. She had to learn how to fish. She, I mean, so many things in one package, and she did it with ease. And I was really impressed with her as an actor as well. To be able to watch her on the set do all these things simultaneously. She's such a sweetheart. She's so talented, and I'm very, very proud that she's part of this film.
And can you explain to people who might not understand, like, what are the dynamics like on a set that's bilingual?
I was interested to see what would be happening on the set because in the last 35 years, I found sets pretty much the same. I always had an interpreter accompany me to sets to talk to actors, to talk to all the hearing people, and I got along fine. But it wasn't the same as it was on this set, which, as you said correctly, was bilingual. There were deaf and hearing and there was sign language. There were more interpreters than I'd ever seen on a set, and everyone learned sign language. The crew, uh, we all bonded, and we all worked together so beautifully in this film. I was in my element, I have to say, and I was totally at ease. I didn't have to worry or be concerned about, well, if somebody's gonna, am I gonna feel left out? If they're gonna be talking. I mean, because I could see everything that was going on. I understood everything 100%. It was really a team effort, and we all became friends in the end, collaborating together.
And my last question I want to ask, I know you've been, an advocate for deaf rights, especially in the cinematic world. What does it mean for you to see projects with more deaf actors like taking a center stage, in Sound of Metal, A Quiet Place, etc.?
As you said, I think more and more people are recognizing the fact that we as a community deserve a place in Hollywood. There are deaf and actors with disabilities who could do any role as well as any non-disabled or non-deaf person that in the past might have been taken by actors playing deaf or playing disabled. I mean, there are real stories, there are real actors, and they all have a universal appeal. And I think we're seeing more and more of that. I think people like us are being able to express our voices, uh, saying, hello, we're here. And I think the isms that have been, in Hollywood, we're just getting rid of them one by one by one. It's an absolutely exciting time, more than ever I have seen in the past 35 years of my career. And I know there'll be more from here on out.
Well, Marley, thank you so much. It was an honor speaking with you. And Jack, thank you so much for interpreting. This was really a pleasure, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Amelia, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you? Thank you for talking to me.
I'm doing good, of course. So I watched the film the other night, and like I told everyone else, like I really did enjoy it. I thought it was such a heartwarming, friendly family film. And also kind of a coming of age film, especially for your
Mhm.
character.
Yeah,
Can you
it
speak?
is.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, no.
I was gonna say, can you speak a bit about Ruby?
So Ruby, the film follows 17-year-old Ruby, and she is the only hearing person in a deaf family. She's a CODA, which stands for Child of Deaf Adults, and she acts as an interpreter for her family. Um, she then joins a choir at school because she likes this boy and discovers this love for music. And the film, as you say, it's a coming of age story, and I guess you find Ruby is at that moment in life when she has to separate from the people she loves, and create an identity apart from them. And it's hard for her because she doesn't want to leave her family. You know, they're a very close, tight knit family, and so she finds herself torn.
And you had to do a lot of preparation for this role. Can you speak a bit about some of the things you had to do to kind of embody Ruby?
Yeah, so I had to learn ASL. I learned all about deaf culture. I learned, I guess, how to sing. I'm always singing, and I sing in the shower. And I did a West End show when I was like 8, but I'd never done anything at the level that was required for CODA. So I guess I had singing lessons, learned how to use my voice. I learned how to work a fishing trawler. Um, learn I'd never jumped off rocks before, which is funny because I'm a daredevil, so I really enjoyed that. But there were a lot of firsts on this film, and I really enjoyed challenging myself. I had a great group of people. I had great deaf teachers, deaf consultants. Everybody on our film set, interpreter wise, were coders, which really helped me because it meant I could talk to them in depth about their experiences and their feelings. And I was so lucky to have Marlee, Troy, and Daniel by my side.
I have to ask because Ruby's relationship with her mom, Jackie, is pretty central to a lot of the conflict
Mhm.
that she faces. What was it like working with Marley?
Marlee is an incredible person. I definitely look up to her. I see her as a role model, that's for sure. Um, like being in scenes with her, it's like a masterclass. I was constantly in awe. I was constantly watching her and picking things up, and she's just absolutely mesmerizing, and she's so animated. And I felt very lucky that I was able to act alongside her. Um, she also helped me in life. You know, I'm kind of new to this. Although I've been acting for a very long time, this was kind of my first film that was very, very challenging and very different. I was, dropped in the deep end a little bit. I didn't know any ASL or deaf culture, and so she really helped me, and Troy and Daniel did too. Um, and Marlee's an incredible cook, so she would always have me around on the weekends, and I was very good friends with her son, so I had a great time hanging out with Marlee, and she's always so kind to me.
What do you feel was your favorite scene to shoot?
It's a really good question. I have so many. I did love filming at the quarry with Bodia. That was very fun. As I said, I'm a daredevil, so I really love jumping off those rocks and swimming. It was fun. But my favorite scene to shoot was the scene with Troy when I'm kind of singing to my dad for the first time. It was a very special scene because it's all about connection. Ruby is trying to find a right level to sing for her dad so he can feel the vibrations. And it was very much teamwork. I was trying to sing at a volume and power that Troy could really feel a lot of vibration, and he was trying to find the best place to put his hand so he could feel. And we were working together, and Troy kind of pulled away and he said, "I'd give anything to hear you sing right now." And I was very close to Troy. He was missing his daughter, I was missing my dad, and so we kind of fell into this relationship and this connection. And when he said that, he kind of folded me into one of his hugs, and we just sat there for a second, and then we continued with the scene. But I think that kind of helped us. I've never felt so close to anyone on screen before.
Well, it was a really tender and heartwarming moment, honestly. It made me cry watching that scene. But Emilia, thank you so much. I think you did fantastic in the film, and I can't wait for everyone to see just what a great film Coda is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi, Daniel. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Hello, hello. I'm doing really good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. I watched Coda the other night and I really loved it. I thought it was so heartwarming, such a nice family film that I feel like a lot of people can relate to.
Oh, great, great. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm glad you liked the movie. Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, why did you decide to take this role?
Well, I was talking to my manager and she said there was an opening. They're taking auditions for this movie called CODA. And that word, CODA, I mean, I knew what that meant. It means child of deaf adults. And I'm like, they're making a movie about that? Okay, I'll check out the script. And I got hooked from the first page and read all the way through. It was such a good story, so cool that explained about, the deaf family in this small fishing town, and they own a fishing business. And I thought that was so neat. And so I auditioned altogether about three different times. Two were video auditions, and one was like on Zoom. Before I, got into the audition, I didn't realize that Marley Matlin and Troy Kotsur, my co-stars, had already gotten their roles as Frank and Jackie, the parents in the film. They were going to be my character's parents. I didn't realize that at the time. So I got into it, and then I found out they were in, and I was so excited. And once I confirmed and got the role, I sent them a text. I'm like, "Hey, I'm in. We got it." We're all really happy, very excited. Leo, the character, is just like me in some ways. Very strong, deaf guy, rolls up his sleeves, gets to it. He's all about the fishing business. He doesn't want pity or sympathy, not at all. Standing on his own 2 feet, and he's ready to just keep it going. So in that way, I feel like we're very similar. And when I read the script, I could very easily imagine being Leo.
So you talked a lot just now about the fishing aspect of the movie. I know you guys like were actually on a boat and like actually fishing. What was that experience like learning how to like fish professionally?
Oh yeah, yeah, we were out there. I mean, it was a great experience. So growing up, I mean, I like to fish. Like I'd be like at a lake, on a dock, maybe a tiny little rowboat or something. But this was the ocean out in the middle in this giant boat. And we had some rehearsal. We had about 2 weeks of rehearsal before we started actually filming. So for 2 days, they took us out, myself, Troy, and Emilia. We would get up at like 2 o'clock in the morning and we would get to the boat. The boat is like in the middle of the ocean, so far out. So we're in there. I mean, there'd be like 4 or 5 actual fishermen on this actual fishing boat, and they would teach us how to use the tools, what to do with like the nets that were scooping the fish up, and there's all these sorts of different sea creatures that we drag out of the water, squids and starfish and like all this different stuff. And we would have to pick out like which ones are keepers, which one are we going to throw back, and they taught us all that. And at first it was really strange and awkward, like where do I stand in the boat and what do I do? But you're there all day and you just kind of get used to it. And we just fell into it. And after a while, they actually had planned to have some stuntmen come in and do some of those fishing scenes for us. That was the plan. But they noticed we picked it up so quickly. Even Emilia, all of us, we just, she's like this fishing lady and we were the fishing dudes. And we got into it and they didn't need the stuntmen at all. And so we really, really enjoyed it. We just got into the role of fisherman like naturally. So, and while we're out there, we saw like a whale and that was really cool and exciting. So I thought it was really thrilling.
What was your experience like in working with your director, Sean?
Sean is a wonderful woman. So brilliant. So brilliant. Oh my gosh. Uh, you know, and exceptional too because she knew some sign language. That's really cool. In my experience, working with many directors in the past, they never know sign language. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. No issue there. But she knew sign language. She knew American Sign Language. And, it was like she kind of was meeting me where I was. She was focused on getting together, talking to me directly about what my character was, what to do in each scene. She really got in depth with it. And I just really enjoyed that. And she's always so open minded. Sometimes we would improv something or play with it. And she's like, oh, I like what you just did. Keep that. And that was a great feeling. And later on, we decided that we wanted to do a couple scenes that were totally silent, which you may remember from the film to show the deaf person's perspective. A lot of controversy about that. People like, no, 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 you can't have silence. And Sean stuck to her guns. She said, yes, we're doing the silence. We want to show this in film. And really, it made it in. And I feel like the audiences really connected with it. They really got a quick sense of what it means to be a deaf person, saw the deaf perspective. So her decisions were great. And we, the cast, trusted her implicitly with everything. We loved her vision for the movie. And I think she has made a great film.
I think this is my last question, but I want to ask, what was your favorite scene to shoot?
I did like a lot of the stuff on the boat, and I liked some of the fight scenes in the bar. I mean, I think maybe the fight scene was my favorite. It was so cool because we had to learn how to practice like the fight choreography and blocking the movement in. And, they planned to use like a bottle to like bash things. Like, no, 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 okay, that's too much. We're gonna get rid of the bottle. And we were kind of going back and forth and practicing. Once we filmed it and showed the director, and then she's like, okay, this is good. Then we filmed it for real. We just had a lot of physicality and timing of the movements. And so after we're done and I saw it on screen, I was like, oh wow, that came out so cool. So I love the fight scene.
Okay, so I think I have time for one more question. What does it mean to you to see more films, like The Sound of Metal, like A Quiet Place, that feature deaf actors in a more center role?
I'm very happy. I'm very happy to see that happen. I mean, it means that Hollywood, that door to Hollywood is opening slowly. We're getting more roles, which is great. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing that happen more in the future. I'd love to see a deaf person in a series or maybe, like in A Quiet Place, having a big starring role like that. I think that's great. I would love to see more, maybe TV series or something. Like, deaf actors tend to show up for maybe 1 or 2 episodes and then they vanish. They don't tend to be a central role on a continuing series. So I'd like to see that more often. Somebody who has a juicy, meaty role who pops up all the time. I'd like to see that happen.
Daniel, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure speaking with you. I really enjoyed the film and I can't wait for everyone to see it.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Me too. Thank you.
Hi, Troy. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Brianna. Nice to meet you as well.
So I did get a chance to watch the film, and like I told everyone, I really did enjoy it. I thought it was such a nice, heartwarming family film, and a coming of age film as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad that you said that. I'm glad you got a chance to see it, and thank you. It really means a lot to us.
So I wanted to start by asking you, why did you decide to take this role in the film?
That's a great question. When I first read the script, I thought finally we get to use dirty sign language. And that was a must. People have to see what that looks like on the hands. I was thrilled to have that opportunity finally. And secondly, the story is realistic. It's similar to what other CODAs go through. My daughter in real life is a CODA, and I've seen what she has to go through. And then now with Ruby, everything was just perfect timing. They casted authentic actors, and that really opened up my eyes. And I said, I have to leverage this opportunity.
Speaking of dirty sign language, I mean, your character and his kids, they have a lot of creative names for each other. Can you speak a bit about your dynamic as their dad and them as your children?
Um, Whatever I say, the poor Coda, Ruby, she has to, even though she's embarrassed because her hearing friends don't know sign language, but I just ramp it up. And it's fun for me to embarrass her. And finally, we have hearing people who are blown away seeing dirty jokes in American Sign Language. It's like, audience, where have you been all this time? And so then now they have that opportunity. Look, we have a sense of humor. We have our own jokes. The only difference is we use a different language.
I want to speak a little bit more about specifically your character's relationship with Ruby, and kind of there's a specific scene that you guys share together, that I spoke to Emilia about, a moment that you guys had on set. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Emilia, every time I work with her, she reminded me of my own daughter. And that helped our connection even more. She didn't feel like a stranger. She's an amazing person. She's so motivated. She dives into character. She broke the ice right away. She wasn't afraid at all. She came right up to me and hugged me on the first day. And we just bonded. It's an amazing relationship. And she's so gifted. And that made me feel comfortable and working closely with her. And that was a huge plus. Just like you said, the chemistry, the cast, it all came together. The right director, the right script, and the right timing. It all came together.
And I also want to ask, what did it feel like for you to be on a set that is bilingual?
English is everywhere. I grew up with using English. But being deaf, I communicate in American Sign Language. So I grew up with both languages. And it depends on the given situation. If there's a deaf person there, I will use ASL. But if I'm interacting with a hearing person, I can adapt and do a little bit of a mixture based on the situation, whether there's an interpreter there. The interpreters, sometimes they grow up in a deaf family, and some of them learn later in life and don't have that upbringing. Working on set, I'm able to switch. So whether we have an interpreter or not, I'm able to adjust and get my point across. And that's what normal life is like. You have to change depending on who you interact with and where you are.
What was your favorite film to see? What was your favorite scene to film?
It's funny you ask. Growing up, I had no experience fishing. I'm from Arizona, and there's no ocean there, obviously. And then now, that the challenging part was fishing, getting up at 2 in the morning every day, learning my trade, what it's like to be on the seas, bringing in fish, and then having that as a part of my character. Sean talked about her vision for Frank. He's a high school dropout. He never finished school, and he took over his father's business after his father passed. He ran this business for many years, and the challenge was that I wanted to show that authentically, to look like a real fisherman. And, from the desert to the ocean was a huge change.
Thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me. It was such a pleasure, and I really
My
enjoyed
pleasure as well.
so much as a character. And I really can't wait for everyone to get a chance to see this film.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Sean. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, Brianna?
I'm doing good. I watched the film last night, and as I told Marley, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was such a nice, heartwarming, family film that I feel like a lot of people can relate to.
Thank you. I mean, I think that is the goal.
It's a very simple story in a way. It's just a story about family, and it is a universal story, I hope, but also, it's putting a very specific family on screen and a culture that we don't get to see very often and characters that we don't get to see very often on screen. So it feels like a nice combination of being very culturally specific, but also kind of having universal themes.
Can you explain a bit about where the idea for the film came from?
Yes, the film is
Based on a French film called La Famille Bellier. And I, had made one feature, Tallulah, and I was looking for what my next project was. And I met with the producers who were looking to do an American remake. And I was very struck by the story and the emotion in the story and the idea of this CODA girl who grew up very culturally deaf and then had to kind of go forth into the hearing world and felt torn between these two worlds. And so there was a lot of tension and interesting depth to that idea. So I saw an opportunity to take the premise of the story and make a film that felt like very much my own within that.
And can you explain what the title of the film, CODA, what it means to you?
Sure. So CODA is the term for child of deaf adults.
And it is a term in the deaf community which describes a kid who has deaf parents or a deaf parent. And it's also a musical term. So there's a double meaning to the title. The coda is the ending of a piece of music that often kind of sums up the music and completes it. So I love, there's a lot of ASL in the movie. There is also a lot of music in the movie. And it's a coming of age about, the end of childhood. So it feels like a very fitting, double meaning within the title.
And for people who have never heard of this terminology before, can you explain what a director of ASL is? Because I know you wanted to be as authentic as possible, and I know you learned sign language, and learned a lot about deaf culture. So can you explain what a director of ASL is?
Yeah, a director of ASL is basically it's like a dramaturg in the theater.
It's someone who has often a theater background, a real knowledge and depth with the language, who is there to not just do, any translation of the scenes that need to happen, who's there to be kind of in charge of all of the ASL scenes. And, an ASL master is often or needs to be a deaf person because they're also have their eyes on deaf culture and the way that it's being represented. And so I was very lucky with Alexandria Wales and Ann Tomasetti to have two collaborators who, Alexandria helped me in prep with the interpretation of the script, and finding a way to bring those scenes to life and the jokes and all of that and how they would all work in ASL. And then Anne took over on set, and she was with me at the monitor every step of the way. And she was really working with my actors and with myself to make sure that all of the signing was clear and was getting at the intention and the emotion of the scene. And really, making sure that that signs were always in frame and that we weren't cutting anybody off. And so Anne was an amazing ally for me on set. I would not have been able to make the movie without her, because I think her eye and the way that she looked at the story and helped me craft those scenes just gave it a level of depth and reality that I never would have been able to do on my own.
And I know for me personally, I particularly enjoyed one of the scenes toward the end of the film. It made me quite emotional. I wanted to ask, what for you was your favorite scene to film?
I guess those are two different questions. One would be my favorite scene in the movie when I watch it, and then the other would probably be my favorite scene to film.
I mean, one of my favorite moments in the movie is when Emilia is Ruby is asked how she feels about music, and she, instead of choosing to answer in English in that moment, she chooses to sign how she feels about music. And speaking of my ASL master, Anne Tomasetti came up with what Ruby signs in that moment, working with Emilia, and it was just such a beautiful expression of, in a way, ASL to me is closer to music and how expressive it is than any spoken words could be, and so it feels like a natural fit in the moment that she. And I get chills every time I see that moment in the movie because of what she signs and the way she signs it. But in terms of my favorite scene to shoot, like the fishing stuff was so crazy and so much fun to shoot. We actually went to sea, and we were out on this, rusty fishing boat 3 miles out to sea with big waves and, a limited crew on the boat and then multiple boats out with us. And it was just a very wild environment to be working in, and also really exciting.
So I think all of those fishing scenes were the most fun.
Well, Sean, thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I think everyone is really going to enjoy this film. I really do think it's something everyone can relate to.
Thank you.